This episode contains lots of adult language. Welcome to the James Chambers Show. I'm your host for this podcast, James Chambers. We've all seen the videos online, a group of protesters on a street corner, an unsuspecting Prius waiting at a red light, or a bicyclist on their way to work, a gaggle of club girls all decked out, walking down the street, only to be blasted with a black cloud of noxious diesel smoke and the squeal of tires. The perpetrator? A big diesel truck that has been modified very specifically. It's not a new thing, but I was surprised that this kind of truck mod actually had a name: rolling coal. So-called coal rollers didn't start by intentionally blasting poisonous clouds of shit at pedestrians. This trend was, and still is, a byproduct of souped-up diesel truck and tractor pulling competitions. It's a local and state fair thing, sleds piled high with concrete and metal or cars, anything heavy, and they're pulled by these gut-churning diesel beasts, and the first driver to reach the finish line without blowing their engine gets bragging rights and maybe a little cash prize. Unless you live in a rural area, or the South or the Midwest, you may not have heard about this motorsport. Rolling coal is different. The intent is not to soup up or torque out and make a beast of a pulling vehicle. It's to own the libs. That's it. Coal rollers love to embroider their cab windows with slogans like Prius repellent and you keep your fuel mileage, we'll keep our manhood. I guess because I'm a douchebag was too on the nose. Basically, these diesel owners bypass the emissions control system on newer vehicles or just bypass the exhaust system in older vehicles and allow more fuel to reach the engine. Since not all of that fuel is spent in combustion, it gets blasted out of the tailpipe as a particulate-laden cloud of soot and smog. Coal rolling used to be primarily to show off, to demonstrate the young male's fertility and alpha male status, to attract the female of the species adorned with a plaid shirt and tied off at the midriff, cut-off jean shorts, and drinking Fireball out of the bottle. His prize spotted, the young male screeches his mating call of tires and fans his vast black plumage like a drunken peacock that's accidentally rolled in shit. Quickly, the female will become pregnant with the young male's offspring, and he will quickly depart the nest before having to pay child support. Such it is in the wilds of Arkansas. Look, as silly as it is, coal rolling has become something of a political statement in the last few years. CRs find an unsuspecting protest or a hybrid car and just crap in their face and laugh and feel ever so smug that they owned the stupid libs. They're making a statement, damn it. You can't tell me to stop polluting. It's my God-given right. I'll show those SJWs who's boss by burning excess fuel and polluting and costing myself gas money. It's so stupid. Even coal rollers who are in it for the sport, who actually charge up their farm equipment to maximize towing capacity, even those people think street rollers are idiots. They're making their whole culture look bad in the eyes of the community at large. Now, personally, I think the whole thing is wasteful and useless. But I can appreciate that people have hobbies that I don't care about in the least, like tractor pulls. Yes, those vehicles are noxious and they're pollution machines, but they only get used every so often, and they're kind of for a sport-ish or sport-lateral purpose. But those insufferable dickbags who mod their diesels for the singular purpose of pissing off lefties are just terrible people. Oh, come on, man, you say. How much damage can a handful of trucks do to the environment? Quit being a snowflake. Well, you're right. A few nasty vehicles are not going to substantially damage the environment. It would take, say, a couple million vehicles to start to tip that scale, or how about more precisely, 264 million vehicles in the U.S. alone and over 1 billion vehicles across the globe. That doesn't include off-road vehicles or heavy construction equipment, so yeah, one little coal roller isn't going to do much damage, or is it? This is from the Union of Concerned Scientists. Quote, "Our personal vehicles are a major cause of global warming. Collectively, cars and trucks account for nearly 1/5 of all U.S. emissions, emitting around 24 pounds of carbon dioxide and other global warming gases for every gallon of gas. About 5 pounds comes from the extraction and production and delivery of the fuel, while the great bulk of the heat-trapping emissions, more than 19 pounds per gallon, comes right out of a car's tailpipe." In total, the U.S. transportation sector, which includes cars, trucks, planes, trains, ships, and freight, produces nearly 30% of all U.S. global warming emissions, more than almost any other sector. Maybe coal rolling isn't such a good thing. It's just piling on top of a problem that we have yet to solve. It's like if your puppy pees in the living room and you punish him by burning down your house. What does that solve? I mean, does it even make any sense? Well, no, of course not. We here in the U.S. have about 30% of the vehicles in the world, yet we are responsible for about half of all of the air pollution across the planet. Remember, every time a vehicle burns 1 gallon of fuel, it puts 24 pounds of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the air. I know my personal vehicle has about a 13-gallon tank. That's 325 pounds of air pollution every time I fill up my car. And because I fill up weekly, that's almost 17,000 pounds of pollution annually, just from me. And I have a relatively efficient gasoline vehicle. Now multiply that by 264 million vehicles in the U.S. alone, and many are less efficient than others. Now, that's like a really big number. Okay. Okay, carry the 2. Subtract Matt Damon. Okay, 4.5 trillion pounds of greenhouse gases pumped into our atmosphere every year, just by us. Now, China has surpassed us in pollution numbers, so I guess, yay, we pollute less than China. What sucks about all of this is that it all sucks. There's no realistic way to quickly transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy, especially in transportation. We don't have the infrastructure in place to go, say, all electric, for example. And besides, 63% of our electricity production is dependent on fossil fuels right now. So while going electric would certainly help the problem of air pollution, the electric fuel these vehicles use is essentially still dirty. And I don't want to touch on the problems that extracting rare earth elements to build the batteries cause. That's a whole different topic. But don't get me wrong, this isn't a zero-sum game. Any reduction in air pollution should be hailed as a victory, and this is where the government should be stepping up to the plate. Public-private partnerships have given us revolutionary innovations in science and technology. Solving our pollution problem will take real resolve and real funding from the Fed. So every time you have an opportunity to tell someone in government that we need stronger investment in our environment and pollution controls, tell them. Speak truth to power, especially now as the Trump administration has overturned 46 environmental rules, rolled back 76 policies, and has 30 more rollbacks in process. And since we're talking about rolling coal and pollution, what about actual coal? How does coal affect our environment? The Trump administration pushed hard on coal miners and bringing back coal jobs, so what does that mean? Well, let's start with what coal is. Coal is a sedimentary rock that is largely made of carbon formed from the altered remains of prehistoric vegetation. Its energy is stored in the carbon itself, which is combustible. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? Well, here's the problem. This is from Scientific American. According to a report by the nonprofit Physicians for Social Responsibility, coal combustion releases mercury, nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxide, and other substances known to be hazardous to human health. The report concludes that air pollutants produced by coal combustion contribute to asthma, lung cancer, congestive heart failure, and strokes. If that isn't bad enough, coal mining itself is hazardous to both the environment and the people mining. Again, from Scientific American, coal mining leads U.S. industries in fatal injuries, and miners have suffered prolonged health issues such as black lung disease, which causes permanent scarring of the lung tissue, and surface mining destroys forests and ground cover, which leads to flooding and soil erosion. Mountaintop removal can bury streams with rubble and in turn harm aquatic ecosystems. Waterways also may be contaminated due to the storage of post-combustion wastes from coal plants, that's known as coal ash. There are 584 coal ash storage sites in the U.S., and toxic residues have migrated into water supplies at dozens of them. Not only are coal-fired power plants hazardous to the general public in terms of air pollution, they're destructive to our soil and our water. The mining industry is pushing hard to have fewer regulations in place to keep them in check, and regulations that keep us all safe from their disgusting and poisonous aftermath. Thankfully, those rules can be reinstated and tightened once we take back control of government, and that will happen very, very soon. But in the meantime, here's what spews from coal-fired power plants every single day. Mercury. Coal plants are responsible for 42% of U.S. mercury emissions. It's a toxic heavy metal that can damage the nervous, digestive, and immune system, and is a serious threat to childhood development. Just 1/70th of a teaspoon of mercury deposited into a 25-acre lake can make the fish unsafe to eat. U.S. coal power plants emitted 45,000 pounds of mercury in 2014. Sulfur dioxide. Produced when sulfur in the coal reacts with oxygen, SO2 combines with other molecules in the atmosphere to form small acidic particulates that can penetrate human lungs. It's linked with asthma, bronchitis, smog, and acid rain, and U.S. coal power plants emitted more than 3 million tons of SO2 in 2014. Nitrogen oxides. Nitrous oxides are visible as smog and can irritate lung tissue, exacerbating asthma, and make people more susceptible to chronic respiratory diseases like pneumonia and influenza. In 2014, U.S. coal power plants emitted more than 1.5 million tons. Particulate matter, better known as soot. This is the ashy gray substance in coal smoke, and it's linked with chronic bronchitis, aggravated asthma, cardiovascular effects like heart attacks, and premature death. U.S. coal power plants emitted 197,000 tons in 2014. Here are some other harmful pollutants emitted in 2014 by our coal fleet. 41 tons of lead, 9,000 pounds of cadmium and other toxic heavy metals, 576,000 tons of carbon monoxide, which causes headaches and places additional stress on people with heart disease, 22,000 tons of volatile organic compounds, which form ozone, which is good in the upper layers of atmosphere and really toxic down at our level, 77,000 pounds of arsenic, and for scale, arsenic causes cancer in 1 out of every 100 people who drink water containing 50 parts per billion. That's an astoundingly small amount of poison to create such a dramatic health effect. What could 77,000 pounds do, I wonder? What about diesel? Diesel is fossil fuel just like coal, so what does diesel exhaust have in it? Well, here's its major components: carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, nitric oxide, particulates not otherwise regulated, sulfur dioxide. Is this sounding familiar? More than half of the major components in diesel exhaust are the same as the nasty shit that comes out of our coal-fired power plants and coal mines. Not surprising since they're both carbon-based fuels, but now, how would you like to have that thick cloud of hazy, ashy shit just blasted in your face? That's what these dickless troglodyte coal rollers are doing. They intentionally bypass emission control systems to recklessly pollute and cause distress to other people. Given that the constituent parts of diesel exhaust causes acidic particles that penetrate human lungs, cause cardiopulmonary problems and heart attacks, exacerbate asthma, cause chronic bronchitis, and makes a person susceptible to chronic respiratory problems like pneumonia and influenza, and can even cause premature death. Given all of that, these twat waffles are gleefully running amok and spewing poison at people for their own amusement. They don't know the health history of the protester or the bicyclist or the girl on the street. That blast of soot and garbage could easily be enough to trigger a life-threatening asthma attack or another form of respiratory distress. And why am I so angered by all of this? I have literally watched people die in emergency rooms from respiratory distress and poisoning. It's ugly. It's painful, and in this case, it's totally avoidable. There is a legal term for what these piss wizards are doing: battery, as in assault and battery. Here's the legal description. Assault, also called attempted battery, is a threat or physical act that creates a reasonable fear of imminent harmful or offensive contact. So assault is the threat of battery. Battery is a physical act that results in a harmful or offensive contact. Thus, intentionally blasting toxic chemicals at a person or a group to offend or cause distress is battery under the law. Coal rollers are committing a crime by intentionally attempting to cause distress and demonstrating a reckless disregard for other people's health and safety. If that girl or that protester or that bike messenger has asthma, that cloud of chemicals could easily trigger an attack, and it could take first responders between 8 and 30 minutes to get to them. They could be dead in 2. So, of course, this is an extreme outlier. Very few people are going to have fatal reactions to diesel smoke and soot being spewed in their direction. However, it's the recklessness and total lack of basic decency that gets me incensed. Here are some advice for all of you who get rolled, or who witness coal rolling. Take your free hand, either one, find your third digit, extend your third digit upward as hard as you can while flexing all of your other digits into a fist. Feel free to use thrusting motions if you are so inclined.
I hope you can see this because I'm doing it as hard as I can.
Now that you have the hand gesture down, let's add a few words to help you express your disappointment and disdain for the coal roller in question. Here's a handy list of terms you may find useful in this situation. Shitbag, fuck trumpet, twat, cocknose, dickweed, dickhead, shitpouch, fuckwit, cockwomble, fuck bucket, fuck face, bumhole, asshole, piss flaps, wank face, knob cheese, jizz breath, piss artist, douche canoe, nutsack, asswipe, chode, fuck stick, peckerhead, butt munch, ass eyes, and the classic motherfucker. So for example, you can say, take your shitbag truck and get to steppin', you cocknosed fuckwit. Or, I got your license plate, you jizz breath wank face. I hope this little public service announcement helps you in the future. Remember, knowing is half the battle. There is one other thing you can do if you feel especially devilish. Remember the Rickroll? It was big about 10 years ago. It was basically a way for people to shut down offensive Twitter threads, Facebook or Reddit posts, things like that. Basically posting comments to the chain that are clips of Rick Astley's classic 80s hit, Never Gonna Give You Up, over and over and over again. Never gonna give you up. Rickrolling is funny, annoying, and totally passive-aggressive. Never gonna let you down. Normally, I wouldn't promote such juvenile online antics, but I did just list 27 cuss words, including butt munch. So, let's bring the Rickroll back into its classic form. Let's just say you happen to run across a YouTube or Facebook video of coal rollers doing their thing. Rickroll them. Or maybe there's a press conference being held by a coal baron. Rickroll them. It's super easy, and it will make you feel better. Or, I guess, you could do the adult thing and contact Rick Perry. Remember him? He heads the Department of Energy. Let him know that coal needs to be on its way out, and clean energy is in. But don't Rickroll Rick Perry. He just wouldn't get it, not even with his smart glasses on. You can contact the DOE via email at the.secretary@hq.doe.gov. That's a mouthful. Let's do it again. the.secretary@hq.doe.gov. Or just call the switchboard. That's 202-586-5000 and ask for Rick Perry. Thank you for listening to the Rickrolling Coal episode of The James Chambers Show. Sources for this episode include Scientific American, the Union of Concerned Scientists, Wex Legal Dictionary, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, How Stuff Works, the Diesel Technology Forum, the U.S. Energy Information Administration, Wine and Water Watch, and BuzzFeed. As always, leave a comment in the section below or contact the show at realjcshow2017@gmail.com. That's realjcshow2017@gmail.com or on Twitter @realjcshow. Thanks again for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. Talk to you next time. Never gonna let you down.